Some forces that be just want to seemingly interrupt the flow. I don't even know whether or not this is working anymore. This has only happened in relationship to Burma, but as I might rudely say in English, fuck it. Allow me to continue. It looks, yep, there's some people. Okay, cool. Okay, I'm going to have to hold this in my hand because someone's thwarted my ability to have this on a tripod. Wow, okay, cool. Fuck it. So I'm saying here about the awesome bravery of the people of Burma. You, if you're listening, and I hope it goes to the country of Myanmar, how amazingly inspired I am. And I know millions of people around the world are deeply touched in ways that rarely get nurtured in our own human humble life here in the, the ongoing onslaught of a kind of occupied America with the banality of profit over nature, over life, over intimacy, with what looks to be a bunch of atomic, like programmed meat puppets running the country and the world. It's like just programmed on banality, and it's just disgusting. I don't know where to even go with it. But over there in Myanmar, you people are taking it to the streets and you're basically saying no to dictatorship. And I'm wondering, what would I do if I were on the streets or in the country? I want to refer to a few stories that I have with Aung San Suu Kyi, being that she cannot speak for herself right now. And I cannot believe that the world is allowing this amazing human being, a Nobel laureate, an elected leader, the moral Dhamma spirit of an entire nation, along with millions of other people that have voted many of her people into office. The world is standing around and watching how a democracy is being hijacked. I mean, it's beyond me, but it's probably not uncommon in this bullshit world of money and conquest and men with wretched egos that just, I don't even know how anyone could even talk to you. It's just putrid. I'm sorry to be so frank these days, but there's something disgusting about something disgusting. It's better to say it's disgusting than to pretend that it's not. And so Myanmar, when I met Aung San Suu Kyi, I remember she told me that someone asked her, what is it like to be free again after 6 years of incarceration? And she remarked matter-of-factly, I never saw myself as unfree. And when I heard that from her, I just said, that is so fucking rad. That's so cool that you honestly, in your deepest sense of conscience, never let them, the so-called big boogeyman of the Thamada, capture your mind. And it became an operating definition, if you will, for what she and many of the millions of people in your country of Myanmar called a revolution of the spirit, really first and foremost to challenge the residual forces of greed, anger, and delusion within our own mind, and to take radical responsibility for their subjugation, and equally the elevation of the good, the true, and the beautiful. And I never saw myself as unfree. She served and was a long-time practitioner under my teacher, Seda U Pandita. And I just have reverence for the people of Burma who empower consciousness in context over profit and the conformity or obedience to people. So the primacy of consciousness and the mindful intelligence and the moral courage, if you will, to responsibly engage one's own interior to overcome greed, anger, and delusion, and empower those qualities of decency over denigration of the environment, denigration of people. And therein lies one of the great attributes, I feel, of Burma's struggle for freedom, as I learned it primarily through Aung San Suu Kyi and my friends and mentors, the U Tin Oo, the former general of the army, a remarkable human being who spent, as you know, 19 years in prison. Daw Aung San Suu Kyi, 15 years under house arrest. And her mentor, U Chi Mung, one of my teachers and mentors and very dear friend, who just so rad, who all of which were military people who abandoned the military. Long before, Senior General Ming On Line was he was a nobody. He's a nobody now. He's really a nobody now. But, hiding behind these badges and uniform, what a fucking idiot, man. I just wish I could take you behind the barn, dude, and have a word with you, because you're so pathetic. Anyway, Alan, reel it in. Just reel it in. Bravery among the people. I never saw that I was unfree. And if there's probably something I would like to just remind the people, because Daw Aung San Suu Kyi isn't free to talk for herself, why Burma matters to me is that you, as a culture, primarily, not the Buddhist culture alone, you primarily lead with emotions. In my country, we lead often, I don't want to just denigrate them, we lead with status, privilege, what you fucking look like, how much fucking Botox and filler you've got in your wallet, pretense, and it's riff within the spiritual Buddhist scene. It's in all categories, in religion and obviously in politics. Everything oozes with the infection, inflammation, the pus of profit. Profit, profit, profit. I sorry to be so exaggerated, but it's like, you're in a prison cell and there's dead rat or there's $1,000 bills. You'll even eat dead rat over your money. Whereas prior to prison or without food, you'd eat that dollar bill in a second. It's just something about it that just doesn't work. Myanmar as a culture, and yes, there's an excessive amount of wealth within a small minority of men, primarily, and women too. It's an oligarch, it's a mafia, it's a Taliban, it's a country of unthinkable wealth within the Thamada, and the oligarchs that run the primary businesses, whether it be lumber and oil and gas. We all know this. But Burma is not, it was a fledgling democracy. We had 10 years of it there. And Daw Aung San Suu Kyi gave it her best along with everyone else who was elected, and the people tried their very best to have a conversation with these men in uniform called the Dharma of Reconciliation, but these pricks didn't want to understand a woman or the people and listen to something decent as like, let's talk about the future of our lives, including you. We don't want to see you go to The Hague and be butchered and quartered. We've got an out for you. It's called retirement. It's called meditation. It's called you can keep your wealth. But no, 10 years of our willingness to engage dialogue, you just basically just gave us a big fuck you, man. And then here all of a sudden, you imprison me, and you imprison the president, and you detain 500 plus other people, and you shoot our boys and girls, and you threaten to imprison lots of other people, and you're jailing our medics. Pause. It ain't right. No matter what you've got going in your head, no matter what ASEAN and the EU and America and Canada and Australia say, you are utterly bankrupt as individuals in what you are thinking and what you're a terrorist group. You're an assailant in a home trying to rape and kill my family. You're a criminal. And if you were in society doing what you're doing on a smaller scale, you'd be imprisoned on the spot. But when it comes to the privilege of the military and uniform and the ongoing access to trade and money and all that crap, Burma, you're bringing all of this to the forefront in the world. This incredible global collusive oligarchy, if you will, that belongs to this kind of cesspool of money and privilege and yuckity yuck yuck. So you're a younger generation. I met Aung San Suu Kyi in 1995, and the last third of this sharing today, I'd been a long-time lover of Myanmar. I'd traveled, I'd learned a lot of the language, I'd been a monk, I had written books, I did a film based loosely on one of my books, maybe you've seen it, called Beyond Rangoon, with my beloved friend. U Aung Ko is the star Burmese protagonist in the movie. See the movie, it's remarkable. And I was invited to come into Myanmar, and if I could meet with Aung San Suu Kyi, she had just been released, and to offer her an opportunity to speak to the world on the essence of your country's nonviolent struggle for freedom. This was back in 88, 89, 1990. Then, of course, she was arrested along with so many other people, and then released in 95. And I waited for 6 weeks in a hotel. I had my very dear friend U Tin U, her colleague. He had also been released. He had been the general under Ne Win, of all things. He had spent 6 years in prison, isolated by Ne Win. Imagine just being alone in a prison cell. You're a general, you've got privilege. Imagine Senior General Ming On Line. Tomorrow he's in a prison cell. Doesn't even get his pet dog with him. He can't talk to his wife. He can't, he's just wanting to, get, those walkie-talkies. He just, he's incarcerating Aung San Suu Kyi. He would beg to have a walkie-talkie. He's got nothing. He's cowering in the corner. He can't even pee properly. And all of a sudden, U Tin U is in a prison cell. I met him just days after he was released. He said, Alan, you know what it's like to be put into solitary confinement after being the general of the army? My children, my family. I had one book that was smuggled into me on the power of mindfulness by Mahasi Sayadaw, my preceptor as a monk. And I learned what it meant to morally engage my own mind. Like, take Samvega-based responsibility for consciousness. I'd always assumed that when greed arose, it meant, let me have it. Or when anger arose, let me harm it. Or if delusion arose, I like it or I hate it, but I won't see it as a filter and try to understand a deeper prism to it. He said, it took prison to awaken to me. I say, put Senior General Ming On Line in the Thamada in a cognitive prison. You know why? Because you can't imprison my mind, Aung San Suu Kyi said. You may imprison my body, as it's been said by many, many political prisoners, but you have no capacity to imprison my mind unless I let you. And this is what's going down in Burma today. This is what I see the boys and girls doing. They have control of their own consciousness, their own voice, and they're voicing freedom. So after 6 weeks of being in a hotel in 95, and there was no let up with regard to meeting Aung San Suu Kyi, I decided to leave the country, and I went to see my friend U Tin U before leaving. And I went there to his home in Rangoon, in Golden Valley, and it was surrounded by soldiers, and I talked my way in. And he said, Alan, you must leave the country immediately. We're going to be arrested. I've heard the news. And thank you for everything you've done. And I'll see you on the other side of prison. And I packed and was ready to leave in the morning. And the phone rang, and it was from Aung San Suu Kyi's home. And it was either Ue Win or U Win Tain, or both of them. And they said that Aung San Suu Kyi would like to see you this morning. And so I immediately went and met her in her home at 54 University Avenue in Rangoon. And we talked, and we agreed to present her views to the world hour by hour, because incarceration was imminent, as she said. And that her only request was that her key colleagues were included in the work, which they were. And the whole deal was to ask essence questions minute by minute, because it could be the last, either imprisoned or deported or both. And I'll close with this, because I think it's of essence. It has nothing to do with me, really. It's all about your people. And it's about the inspiration that I have found to belong and to share, to stand in solidarity, to speak up for your ongoing struggle for democracy and freedom, called a revolution of the spirit. And she said, what would you like to ask? And I said, I would like to know this simple question. Is, you call it a revolution of the spirit here. It's nonviolent. What is the essence that your people should know about nonviolent struggle, about the importance of a revolution of consciousness over domination of the enemy? And it's so embedded in my cognitive heart. She said, Alan, you were out on the street. There may have been 1,000 people gathered, listening to Uchimang and Utianu and myself talk about the characteristics and the qualities of democracy. Our country's lived under dictatorship, as you know. Few people understand the role of freedom, the role of expression, freedom of press, freedom of mind, what it means to think and question authority. And those people risked imprisonment and torture and murder, because it's against the law by the dictator to gather in groups of more than 5, as it is today in Burma. That's incredibly brave to confront that. And she said, each of those people, imagine in their room, in their home, with their family, their own personal interests, had to make a decision to no longer stay behind what appeared to be the safety of their 4 walls, because it was a false safety, and no longer hide behind their own fear, but to activate their sanvega, their urgency of consciousness, and to assemble and to come together, the power of the people on the street, nonviolently standing up, sitting down, speaking up for the power of freedom. That takes courage. The essence of this struggle, she said, is moral courage. And that's what I see in Myanmar today. The girls and the boys, the doctors, the medics, the teachers, the civil servants, the pilots, the bus drivers, the taxi drivers, the petrol station. Think of all 1,200 hospitals. Only something like 330 now have gone on strike and joined the civil disobedience movement. I don't know how many medics that is. But imagine tomorrow another 100 hospitals closed down. Imagine the next week 300 hospitals closed down. The Tamara can't imprison all the medics. They will kill themselves. The medics in Burma are even more powerful than the Sangha. Doctor, doctor, calling you, medic, medic, nurses and nurses, just like Rangoon General Hospital. Civil disobedience movement. Let it sweep throughout the country. The power of the people, Do Aung San Suu Kyi, who no longer stay in the false security behind their own 4 walls. They join the movement. One person at a time. One person at a time will be successful. And she used a phrase which has stuck in my heart that came from Seda U Pandita, our teacher. I don't know the Burmese word for it, but quivering. It's a positive state of mind. It's a kusala state of mind, quivering. It's the maturing of a beautiful state of mind, like someone who's really selfish and is moved to give something, you quiver with your dana. It's not easy to, damn, should I, shouldn't I? Oh God, regret that you did it. You want it back. You are angry at yourself and her or him that you did it. You ask for it. You quiver. You're quivering with kusala, quivering with sanvega. Some people just don't have. Other people love dana, love sila, love freedom. But the Thamada, they're embedded in a delusional paradigm. Why that delusion exists? Ask the Buddha. These people know better than me on why primordial delusion or lobha, dosa, moha. But the truth be, everyone has an opportunity to challenge these forces of denigration, and it often comes when we're mirrored by people who are rising up. When I saw people who were giving to me as a monk, I was so moved by their generosity that I wanted to cultivate dana. Seeing people moved by ethical courage in Burma today and during the revolution in 95 and 96, and later on when I went back into the country in 2012 up to 2021, you see these expressions of meditation in action, hope in action, compassion in action, metta in action, and you are moved. And so my point is, it may not seem to be a powerful influence immediately, but you are inspiring the under 25-year-olds around the world, because they don't want the bullshit politic swamp of American nonsensical, yet again more money and profit and lies and oligarchical control and deplatforming and canceling, and I can't say this, I have to say that. You don't even want me to have thoughts about my own life. What can I even think? You want me to belong to the cult of your big brother, your big sister, your big money, blah, 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 blah. And the youth of Burma right now, and it's not just the youth, but you're saying to ASEAN, you're saying to Indonesia, blah, blah, blah. You're not even going to waste your time anymore on blah, blah. We're not going to wait for you, Nimitz and Theodore Roosevelt to attack. We're not going to wait for you, Australia. We're not going to wait for you, Justin Trudeau. We're not going to wait for you, the EU. Blah, blah, blah. We're going to basically be free because freedom is more important than fear. And we have the power of conscience and the power of Hiri and Ottappa, the power of dana, the power of solidarity, the power of the mind. You have the power of mindfulness in intelligent engagement with anger and greed, and you're showing the world of what it means to light the world on fire with hope through decency and bravery and human life and natural life over money. Blah, blah, blah. Thank you, Myanmar. Thank you, Burma. Thank you, Gen Z. And may I encourage, and it's not easy. I can't even imagine trying to encourage someone who needs to work tomorrow. Alan, how can I feed my family? Dana, let the world find incredibly creative ways to not fundraise for their own nonprofit out of Myanmar, but to fundraise to filter money into the people of Myanmar. Let it cross the border digitally, physically, not just emotional support. America, don't just withhold bucks from these bankrupt generals. $1 billion, it's an embarrassment that we withheld $1 billion of money from, I'm sorry to go off on this, it's just, I don't even know, don't even have words for how stupid a behavior it is. It's embarrassing that you even made a press release about it. $1 billion is not even like a day's profit for these guys off one oil pipeline with China. These guys are in the realm of Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates, plus. It's dark money. It's black money. They've got so much money, it's laughable. They've got so many servants, it's disgusting. They've got jets, they've got tasers, they've got M14s, they've got tanks. Look at the sophistication of this military weaponry that they've got from China, Russia, Ukraine, Israel, and Turkey. Let's stop that. Let's support the people. Meanwhile, Myanmar, you're not on your own. It's better than that. You are a guiding light in the world gone astray. Don't think of yourselves, please, as a small country, in a small group, in a small voice, and that, I know you're in front of the American embassy. I know you're protesting in front of the Chinese embassy and the Indonesian embassy. Those are all cool. But you are the power. We're taking our lead morally and ethically by your actions, not your pleas to our governments to support us. And my sense, the support's going to come from our people around the world, primarily people who are untarnished by their brand and their need to have their online retreats and little things filled up, and their endless need to, fetishize their metta. May all beings, including the Thamada, be happy. No offense, metta-wallas, but it's like, show up with some money, some profit, some actions, have a few graphics on your Instagram page, occasionally on your social media streams. Quote Aung San Suu Kyi, you can come out of the closet. She actually is one of us. You got it wrong. And it's okay, no shame, no blame, but stand for a global revolution in action. What's going down in Burma today is going to go down in history as the pinnacle of nonviolent revolutions in the modern era. I know it's going to be that way. The kids and the boys and the girls of Burma are not going to back down. They don't want to live under dictatorship, tyranny for the next 10, 20, 30 years. No. No. It's not going to work that way. I'll close. It could go on, and I'm going to continue to go on. You're not alone. I'm one person here in Los Angeles, but I have a lot of people in my life. And I'm going to keep speaking. I'm going to keep asking people to join our revolution and your revolution and to support and to share and to comment. We're going to rise up, no shame and no blame. All those little limp and wane people out there all over the world, kind of like, little blah, 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 little narcissistic selfies about this and little quote of this, and little quote of that. And meanwhile, be mindful of my little trite little thing and over blah, 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 blah. Narcissism and 10,000 shades of ignorance. Burma is an SOS for all of us to rise up in our Dhamma. January 4th, 1996, I was invited to Dawsu's house. Independence Day from Britain, the white supremacist imperialist for 135 years. No one really wants to talk about how Burma was dominated by the genocidal wave of white Britain. I mean, I've studied it, unfortunately, and ugly. I've been to the British Museum, the Burma Division, personal tour, seen the pictures of torture by the white supremacists, subjugating the Burmese, to bow to them, to call them king and queen, all the bullshit that the white people imposed upon you. It was ugly, really bad. And now it's metastasized into a dictatorship, now the seventh incarnation for the last 75 years. And now in the second great independence, you want your own autonomy, a new flavor of freedom that isn't being dominated by the white outsider, nor by your own people who psychologically have lost it. Call it, systemic trauma, ignorance, and who knows what else from the lack of education or the lack of intimacy. But they've got to go, and they know it. They're an old, shedding dinosaur. It's toxic patriarchy, and everyone in the world knows that. So stand true. But when I was with Daw Suu at that January 4th, 1996 Independence Day, It was an amazing event to see 400 people gathered, all the while defying military authority, just like you're doing every day in Burma, right on. And there was dancing, and there was poetry and literature and singing. All the ethnicities were there, and everyone was aware that they could be arrested. And then all of a sudden, the curtains opened at the end of the day, and there was U Parle and the Mustache Brothers, the Robin Williams mixed with George Orwell and Ricky Gervais and of Burma, U Parle. And I was explained by my friend who was translating that he was the preeminent spoken word artist in your great country who fused Orwellianisms and Kafkaesque humor and radical satire to unveil the stupidity and the idiocy of the dictators and dictatorial consciousness. He was a master of wit and satire. And he went on to explain to me that he was telling the audience, all of whom now were standing, that he had just been released from 6 years of hard labor up in the north, where he was incarcerated by the dictator Tan Shui for a 2-hour comedy act that he had done that mildly satirized the dictator 6 years before, and he was sentenced to hard labor in chains and leg irons and arm irons, pounding rocks 20 hours a day. Welcome to Burma. And he went on to explain to the audience, as I was told, that he had been waiting for this moment for 6 years, pounding rocks, to satirize Big Brother. That's your legacy. That's your history. Man, that is awesome. And it was told to me that this was his first act. He came down from Mandalay underground, and this was his first public appearance. People thought he was still imprisoned. And I had never seen such a celebration of freedom in my life. It reminds me of having read Nelson Mandela's book, A Long Walk to Freedom, and when he was captured by the white apartheid machinery in South Africa, he and his fellow activists, and they were hauled before the courts, and they were given a life sentence, and they all danced and chanted and celebrated that they were seen as such an enemy of the state that they would be given life terms. And I went, wow, 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 wow. I'd never seen this in action except with U Parle. And he went on to tell the audience that I know that what I'm going to say here for the next 90 minutes will land me back in prison. But I was told that he said that freedom's more important than fear. Welcome to Burma. Welcome to Gen Z. Welcome to another revolution of the spirit to confront the apparatus of dictatorship under Senior General Ming Online terrorist organization. And pretty soon, the military will defect. The police are defecting. The nurses and the doctors, more and more and more, will defect. The civil servants, more and more, will see that working for a lie, the machinery of death is working for Hitler. I'd rather die in dignity than work for denigration. I can see it coming. It's a moral revolution. It's a revolution of conscience, a revolution of Sanvega. You guys are leading the world's conscience in revolution. It's not just one more struggle for democracy. You're at the cutting edge of evolutional history in our ambient world. You rock. You're brave. You're just starting. Don't give up. You have leaders that are jailed. You know them. A long history of greatness with U Win Tin, U Win Tain, Daw Aung San Suu Kyi, U Chi Mung, U Tin U, Seda U Pandita. U Otama went to India, met with Mahatma Gandhi, came back as a monk He did his Martin Luther King. He did his Aung San Suu Kyi. He did his Gandhi. He stood up to the British. He held his hand high to the sky with that handful of salt and said no to dictatorship. And he spoke in eloquent terms. You know this in your long history in Burma. U Ottama, study his speeches. He confronted the white apparatus against all odds. He was jailed. He was released. He kept speaking, was jailed again. U Ottama. You rock, dude. Sangha. Stand with the civil disobedience movement. Integrate timeless universal principles of human rights with the Dhamma. The Buddha would not have sat still here. The Buddha would have come out off the cushion and rocked. He would have done his own version of Gandhi or King or Aung San Suu Kyi. It's a modern expression of Dhamma in action. Your country can take Buddhism to a whole other stratosphere. Monks and nuns, 500,000 of you, take to your heart. I don't say take to the street, but show dictatorship that you do not belong to that cult. Take a stand, release our leaders. Continue the parliament. Let our people breathe without the fear of persecution. Stand down, Senior General Ming Online. Your time is over. You're a dinosaur. You know it. We know it. That's why you're striking out. Put your guns down. Save the carnage. Save your soul. If you are married to him, sir, Madame, walk away from your husband. Every woman in the world married to the Thammadar right now, you know in your heart that what's going down there is wrong. It will blemish you, your children, your family. You'll never be safe again. You're already as good as dead. And in your next birth, welcome to Apaya, Kama and Vipaka. One of the best things you could do right now is to say, I'm sorry, husband. I am walking on. Imagine if Senior General Ming Online and all the other wives and the daughters said walking on, and they joined the civil disobedience movement. Imagine what kind of press that would get if Senior General Ming Online's wife said, I stand with the people, prick. You're over. I disagree with your disastrous thinking process. I want to be reborn as a deva in the civility of my own heart. I want to protect the future of the sasana. Defect, women of Burma. Join the civil disobedience movement. Rock on. All it takes is one. So, from my heart to yours, we have examples. I met with U Parley. He was imprisoned after that gig with Dosu. 2 days later, he got 6 more years of hard labor in a Kachin area labor camp, pounding rocks with arm irons and leg irons. Unthinkable. When I met him up in Mandalay after his release, he was banned along with his brothers from ever performing again, and so they performed only in their living room to those few people that dared go there, as you know. I met with him there. We talked. Among many things, I asked him, sir, how did you get through those final 6 years of pounding rock? And he looked at me with that U Parley smile. I never let them own my mind. No one can ever control your mind unless you let them. Welcome to Burma's revolution of consciousness, freedom of mind, overcoming the rock and the death of dictatorship. Rock on, man. Show the world more and more your courage, the brightness, and we stand with you in your bravery. See you tomorrow. Thank you from my heart. And I hope you have another extraordinary day where the medics and the doctors, the teachers, the drivers, the civil servants, the bankers, the nuns and the monks, the boys and the girls, everyone in Myanmar says stop to the Angulimala of the Thamada, the serial killer. Stop your anger, stop your delusion, stop your greed. Return democracy to our people, or we're going to show what a real revolution looks like until the very end. We will not back down. We're with you, Burma, from my heart to yours. Thank you.